Hello football fans from the UK and beyond, I'm Jamie McCreedy and I'm beyond excited to be your host on this thrilling journey through the beautiful game we all adore. Whether you're a devoted supporter of a top tier club or a passionate follower of grassroots football, this show is dedicated to celebrating the sport that unites us all. Kickoff is not just another football programme, it's a platform where we immerse ourselves in the passion, excitement and the drama that makes football the world's most beloved sport. But what truly makes the sport special is you, the fans, players, coaches and everyone who lives and breathes football. I'm on a mission to bring you the most engaging and insightful conversations with individuals who share the same love for football as we do. Whether you're a club's diehard fan, a player with dreams of glory, a coach shaping with the next generation of talent, or the professional with a key role in the football industry, I want to hear from you. A few days ago, I had the pleasure of chatting to Tony, a dedicated Newcastle fan, and let me tell you, it was an electrifying conversation. The full interview is up next, and I guarantee you will not want to miss it. Tony shared his passionate journey as a fan, his thoughts on the club's future and unforgettable matchday experiences. It's just a glimpse of what the show is all about. We are all real football enthusiasts connecting and sharing our unique stories. But the excitement does not end there. Kickoff for Jamie McCreedy is always on the lookout for fresh perspectives and incredible stories. I want you to be a part of this amazing football community, and if you have a story to tell, then let's hear it. Let's have a passion to share or insights that can light up our airwaves. But do not hesitate to reach out. Let's celebrate your club's triumphs, delve into your role in the football industry, or simply have a friendly debate about the latest matches. The stage is yours. Every episode promises thrilling discussions, insider insights, the sheer joy of celebrating football with fellow enthusiasts, from the Premier League giants to local legends. We'll cover it all. Kickoff with Jamie McCreedy is more than just a show. It's a space where we come together as a football family. So as we get ready to deep dive into Newcastle and their last season triumphs, as well as the future ahead, we will not forget this amazing sport ever. Football is here to stay, and so is Kickoff on Unite Radio. Join me on this incredible journey as Kickoff's unforgettable conversations will last forever. sum up last season?
Do you know what? It was better than what I expected.
Absolutely.
Yeah, last season, I had us down to finish seventh place and maybe win the Carabao Cup. So we got the Carabao Cup final, which was absolutely fantastic. Shame we didn't win it, but to finish fourth, was something that I never imagined. To be fair,
Yeah, is that being ahead of schedule then?
yeah, definitely. I thought we were ahead of schedule. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I
So
thought we were.
so last season you did amazingly, of course. Less losses than Arsenal, who finished second. But how important is it that you qualified for the Champions League?
I think it's very important, because it, you know, it's not just the fact of qualifying for the Champions League, but it brings extra revenue to the club. Via the Champions League themselves, TV rights. You've got the fans from the other countries coming into Newcastle, so they'd be spending their money, getting into the hotels, spend their money probably in the club shop because they'll probably want to buy some merchandise to take back with them. So yeah, all in all, I think it's great for the city and great for the team as well. And also it means you can get that little bit better player at the club as well.
Absolutely. We'll talk about the players that you signed a little bit later on. But the key strengths throughout last season, would you say it's more the defence, the attack, or the home support?
Last season, I would say, well, the defence definitely played a huge part because, when you look at how well the defence played, considering Eddie Howe was quoted as not being a defensive manager, we played really well as a defensive unit, conceded the least amount of goals. So yeah, we did really well last season. We really tightened up. Signing Sven Botman was a great signing, as proved to be, and a bargain as well, at 32 million. So yeah, the defence, but also it was the way we played our football. A great brand of football, pressing, intensity, and absolutely fantastic the way we went forward. A lot of teams didn't know how to play against us. We were annihilating teams. We were tearing teams apart. Yes, we had some sticky parts at the start of the season after we beat Forest. We lost to Liverpool at the end of August, which was unfortunate. We drew Man City at home. You know, we lost to Liverpool in controversial circumstances, but then we had a couple of slight dips where we had draws against the likes of Bournemouth. But we came back against Fulham and took them apart 4-1 and took Brentford apart as well. So yeah, I mean, look, great football we played last season, and it was a joy to watch.
So would you say then Bruno Guimaraes is at the forefront of the heart of the team who connected the attack and defence?
Yes, he is. I mean, look, he's one heck of a player. Again, another bargain signing. Because when he comes in, we're in the relegation zone when he came in, and of course, you don't know how he's going to adapt to the Premier League. But you've got to give credit to Eddie Howe for that, because at the end of the day, he just gradually eased him into it, playing him 10 minutes here, 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, and just building them up. And then once he got in the team, that was it. He was in the team. But yeah, he's been the linchpin in the midfield, him and Joe Linton as well. And not forgetting Sean Longstaff, who did a great job as well.
So what do you think then Joe Linton brings to the team that he didn't have with previous managers?
One, I think he was played in the wrong position for a starters. He was never a striker when he came into the club. He was somebody that played a lot on the left for Hoffenheim. Yes, we know he spent a little bit of time in Austria. So when he first came in, we weren't sure what he was or what he was going to be like. And to be honest with you, under the former manager, we had Steve Bruce. Wasn't really going to get the best out of Joe Linton. Yes, he scored some goals, but he just didn't look great. And the season of when the takeover happened, the start of that season, a lot of fans, myself included, we all wanted Joe Linton out the club. We said, look, he's not fit enough for the Championship, never mind the Premier League, and then Eddie Howe comes in after Bruce is sacked, after the takeover's gone through, and Eddie Howe's just turned him into a totally different player. And possibly because Eddie Howe saw the strengths of where he can play better. And that's hence why he's gotten the Brazilian team now as well. So, now he's probably one of the best central midfielders in the Premier League, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely. But let's talk about maybe the places and the times where you weren't doing as well in the start of the season, where you struggled to find consistency and it took you 5 games to get wins and draws and you weren't doing too well. So yeah, how would you sum up the first start of the campaign?
I mean, we started off okay against Forest. We beat them 2-0 at home. Yeah, the first half was a little bit of a not a great half, but the second half really lit up. Once Fabian Schär cracked one of his spectacular goals from 30 yards out, and then Callum Wilson got on the score sheet. Then we had the 3-3 draw Man City, which, by the way, was a fantastic game. And I think a lot of people around the country probably watched that game and thought, wow, because it takes a lot when Pep Guardiola says after the game, this is a great point for City, and for him to actually say that shows you how well we played as a team. So, and he said, not only is it a great game for us managers and players, he says, but also for the fans in the stadium and around the world watching it. You know, that day, Alan St. Maximin was absolutely unplayable. Kel Walker, I think, was pleased to get off that pitch at the end of it. Then we got beat off Liverpool, which was a bit controversial because our new signing started Isak and he got us the goal, put us ahead. Liverpool got in the second half. It should have been 2-0 to us when there was an offside call. Now, a lot of pictures when you see it, it's not actually offside. But according to VAR, they couldn't tell whose shadow was who, if it was Gomez or Isak. So with that in mind, yeah, and we just seemed to lost that game, Firmino equalised. And then there was an extra minute and a half played, which we don't know where Andrea Marinos got that from. And Liverpool go up and score from a corner, and then he blows the whistle. So we sort of lost that in controversial circumstances because we should have got at least a point out of that game. And then we did have a little bit of a dull with a couple of draws against Palace. Again, against Palace, we were robbed again because of VAR. That goal should have stood. And then, obviously, we drew a Bournemouth 1-1. And then we sort of thought, oh, what's going on here? The wheels sort of fell off a minute, but we came back strongly, beat Brentford, beat Fulham, so, yeah. And we took Fulham apart 4-1, and we've done Brentford 5-1 at St James's Park. So yeah, and that seemed to turn our season around up until the World Cup. Our last game before the World Cup was Chelsea at home when we won 1-0, and that set us up lovely for the World Cup coming up.
Yeah, you did an amazing job after the World Cup, of course. But a few days ago, it was revealed that Maximin will be leaving Newcastle. So how do you feel that he has left, considering you were talking so highly of him a few moments ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a sad moment because although you can't put him down as a legend, you can put him down as a cult hero and a fan favourite because he was. And he was a type of player that would get your backside off his seat and you'd look, to see what he's going to do next. And, he can do some amazing things with the football. The talent's there, but sometimes the end product's not quite there. So while it's sad that he's moved on, but as a club, when you want to evolve, and we've got to evolve, and also we've got to look after FFP restraints as well, and which is down to the previous ownership. So you're then sort of looking, right, okay, he's got to move on for the sake of the club. But I think he's done, considering what he's had to do for the club. When he came under the former owner, when he had to play under Steve Bruce, we had to play a type of football. We had to stay in the division, even if we finished 17th. That was the aim. And so in a bad team, he was the star player. And up until last season, before it started, he did say, not that season, the season when the takeover happened. When he did, before the season started, he said, if this club's only aiming to finish 17th place, then I want to move on because I want to win stuff. So that's when the takeover happened, and we thought, okay, things are going to be better now for Maxi. But we understand he's had to be sold, and while we're sad about it in places, we just have to move on as a club, and I'm sure we'll get in players that'll fit in, and maybe he doesn't fit Eddie Howe's system as well. He was unfortunate because he was playing well last season, but then he picked up injuries, and then he wasn't the same again when he came back. He did play a few good games for us as well at the back end of the season. And we were having high hopes from this season, but obviously he's now off to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, everyone seems to be going there, don't they? But let's talk about then. You said that Maximin was playing in a bad team. But a lot of the bad team that you say have still stayed at the club. I mean, Wilson was still there, Fabian Schär, and we spoke about Joe Linton. So what's kind of turned them around to be the players that they were last season?
I think it's down to proper coaching, if I'm honest. I mean, you know, Steve Bruce, they maybe trained 2 or 3 days a week and that was it. And the training sessions weren't long, they were maybe 4 hours. So the players weren't fit. When Eddie Howe come into the club, he had the players on a beep test and he says these players are only 60% fit, and at this stage of the season, they should be a lot further on than that. So I think what he's done is he's just looked at how they play, looked at our style of play and thought, right, I can tweak these players and make these players better. Fabian Schär's always been a great defender. He just wasn't given the chance under Bruce. Bruce just didn't pick him. So, you know, you look at that and you think, and you see him under Eddie Howe and you think, well, why wasn't he playing a lot sooner? You know, he played under Rafa Benitez and he did well for us under Rafa. Yeah, I mean, look, he's got these players playing brilliantly now. I mean, Longstaff, he's got Longstaff back to the way he was under Rafa Benitez. He lost 2 years of his footballing under Steve Bruce because Steve Bruce is a dinosaur manager with dinosaur tactics. Same with his brother, Matty Longstaff, who's now been released from the club. He burst onto the scene under Steve Bruce against Man United when he scored the winner. There was high hopes for him, but he was never developed. Now, it's a shame he was never developed because if he had have been, he could have been a great player. So unfortunately, at the moment, he's now going to have to look for a new club. But I hope he gets his career back on track somewhere. And yeah.
So what made him such a great player then? If his brother and him were at the same club, and I'm sure they were at previous clubs before, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, what made them good players together? But what made the one who stayed? I'm not sure. I get confused between the two, but the one who stayed, what made him better than his brother?
As I say, it goes down to proper coaching from Eddie Howe again. You know, Eddie Howe's realised what Sean Longstaff's strengths and weaknesses were, and as I say, under Steve Bruce, Sean Longstaff just wasn't given, he wasn't given the right tools to do the job, and wasn't, he was just taught to play everywhere, and so things sort of went stale. But as I say, Eddie Howe's now gotten back to where he was under Rafa Benitez when Man United at the time when we had Rafa wanted to buy him for 50 million quid.
Yeah, so it was a bit of an opportunity miss, really. But so you don't really seem to be liking Steve Bruce as much, maybe as other people do at other clubs. But is your opinion similar to other Newcastle fans?
Yes. Not, yeah, I mean, look, we as Newcastle fans got a lot of stick off the media about Steve Bruce saying, oh, Steve Bruce, you don't like him, you're horrible to him, you're nasty to him. He's a lovely family man. But the thing is, though, what they weren't getting was the fact is the football we were watching was absolute dire. It was terrible. I mean, we went down to Brighton a few seasons ago and we lost 3-0 under Steve Bruce, and it was just absolutely awful to watch. We were just getting ripped apart. And when he brought Willock in on loan, because that was the only deal we did in that January window, you kind of think, where's this one going, But if it wasn't for Willock coming in and scoring the goals he did, we possibly wouldn't have stayed up that season. Again, it goes down to the former ownership. It just didn't really care about the club. That's why we're not in financial trouble. He left the club financially sound when he sold it. The only problem is just the FFP was affecting us because he didn't generate enough funds in the club, i.e. he didn't bring sponsors in because he plastered his own sponsors around the stadium, which he didn't pay for. So, so he didn't leave the club that way very good. And now we're having to play catch up with a lot of teams to get our FFP bar raised so we can go out there and buy more players. But at the moment, we got to be careful who we bring in because obviously we're under scrutiny from every deal we do.
I mean, you're hoping to do more deals. I think the deals that you've done have been absolutely amazing. You haven't gone out there and spent the big names. You've got players that would fit your team well, rather than just go out there and spend the money that you've got. But let's go back to last season. What was the memorable matches of last season for Newcastle?
Oh, well, there was many of them. I mean, look, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, 2035, 2036, 2037, 2038, 2039, 2040, 2041, 2042, 2043, 2044, 2045, 2046, 2047, 2048, 2049, 2050, 2051, 2052, 2053, 2054, 2055, 2056, 2057, 2058, 2059, 2060, 2061, 2062, 2063, 2064, 2065, 2066, 2067, 2068, 2069, 2070, 2071, 2072, 2073, 2074, 2075, 2076, 2077, 2078, 2079, 2080, 2081, 2082, 2083, 2084, 2085, 2086, 2087, 2088, 2089, 2090, 2091, 2092, 2093, 2094, 2095, 2096, 2097, 2098, 2099, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 20 probably the most memorable match last season's got to be Tottenham Hotspur at home. I mean, we were 5-0 up in 21 minutes. You know, and I, I honestly thought that game was going to be a lot harder than first thought. I mean, to go 5-0 up in 21 minutes was absolutely amazing. I've never seen that before from any Newcastle team. And I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I just thought, hang on a minute, this isn't right. You know, even Isak celebrating and thinking, is this Premier League really this easy? I mean, it was just, you know, we just took Spurs apart. And I think Spurs at that point were probably pleased when the half-time whistle came because, you know, but yeah, that's definitely, it's got probably the most memorable one out of them. I mean, there was other ones as well. I mean, like, you know, we beat Chelsea at home 1-0. Great goal by Joe Willock. Beating Man United at home as well, 2-0. Great game again.
What about the 0-0
yeah,
draw?
There's quite a few.
What about the 0-0 draw with Leicester to secure Champions League football?
I mean, yeah, that in some sense that was a great game because we got the Champions League. But I just thought we come up against a typical Dean Smith side, which Dean Smith plays so negatively, and try to put everybody behind the ball. Thankfully, he did come and play that ploy because when Harvey Barnes and James Maddison came on, they sort of put Leicester up a bit, and they nearly scored in the like 87th minute. And it just had the feel to me that he wanted to have a smash and grab. Obviously, had Leicester beat us, they would have stayed up in the Premier League, and Everton would have gone down in that place. But yeah, to get that point and to secure Champions League football that night was absolutely fantastic. And you know, yes, a game we probably should have won, but all in all, getting the point was the main thing.
Of course, you've got Champions League football next season. That's obviously amazing for you. Let's talk about some standout individuals, and I want to hint about Joe Linton and Callum Wilson, who did score in the demolition of Tottenham. So what are your opinions of them? Have they changed or have they stayed the same at the times that they've been at the club?
No, I think there's definitely been a major change in Joe Linton. I mean, as I say, Eddie Howe's got the best out of him now. You know, finally he's got somebody who's a decent coach, and Joe Linton's able to feed off that. I mean, he was scoring last season, Joe Linton, but the way he was scoring the goals was totally different to what he had under the previous. So, you know, he just looks better in that midfield role. And he's quite an enforcer in the midfield. I mean, his goals against West Ham when he got around the keeper and things like that. If that was, say, a couple of seasons ago and it was Steve Bruce, he possibly doesn't score a goal like that. He probably fluffs it, in all honesty. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely upped his game, Joe Linton, and maybe the help of Bruno as well in the midfield. You know, two Brazilians together. But maybe the football we're playing suits Joe Linton as well. But no, he's been absolutely tremendous now, and we're certainly seeing why we've paid 40 million for him, because he's worth a lot more than 40 million now, that's for sure. And Callum Wilson, I mean, he did all right. He got injured. Then obviously we brought Isak in because we were due to bring Joe Pedro in, but we dropped him and got Isak instead. And then Wilson came back and then went to the World Cup. When he come back from the World Cup, Wilson looked a totally different player. So from December to March, you'd only scored like one goal in 3 months. And a lot of fans, not just myself, but were thinking, oh, is Wilson finished? Is this it for Wilson now? You know, because he's not really done anything. And then he got benched, and Eddie Howe started Isak. And then Isak started scoring. Wilson coming off the bench and scoring. And then when we were playing 3 games a week, we were rotating. So we'd play Wilson on the midweek games, starting him, and putting Isak on the bench. And Wilson started scoring more and ended up with 18 goals at the end of the season, which was a very good return for Callum Wilson, considering 3 months of that season from December to March, he'd only got 1 goal. So to finish up with 18 goals was absolutely tremendous. And I think Eddie Howe deserves a lot of credit for that, because what I think he did was he thought, right, I'm going to give Callum Wilson a rest on the bench and I'm going to play Isak. So then Wilson's probably thought, well, I'm sitting on this bench, so I'm going to go out there and if I get on that pitch, I'm going to go and score and prove a point. And I think it made Callum Wilson a better player. So again, that's got to go down to Eddie Howe's management again. Absolutely fantastic management. And then obviously Wilson went off for the England team at the end of the season, and he got a goal against Malta and from the penalty spot. So yeah, I think Wilson's looked better. Maybe Wilson's got another season or two left in the Premier League. But yeah, we'll definitely need to get another striker in to be a replacement. But I think he's probably got next season and maybe the season after. And I think after that, he may have to either go elsewhere or drop down a division.
So you spoke about Isaac being signed instead of João Pedro. Is that the better option to be signing Isaac than Pedro? What does he bring to the team that Pedro doesn't?
I mean, at the time we didn't really know a lot about Pedro, but apart from being young, but I just thought, well, Watford's gone down. Is he really going to be I've seen him score against us for Watford. But I thought Isak is the better player in all honesty. Isak is absolutely superb with the ball at his feet. It looks like the football's glued to his football boots. I mean, that setup against Everton when we beat them 4-1 down at Goodison Park. When Isak from the halfway line, he took the ball, dribbled round quite a few of their players, even left Michael Keane down on his backside, and then he crossed that ball over, which obviously Murphy put in the back of the net. You see that bit of skill and you just think, wow, that is mind-blowing. And he's done it again in pre-season as well with his dribbling skills. So you can see what Isak brings the team, and he got 10 goals considering he lost 4 months of the season through injury. So Isak's going to get better and better, and he's only young. He's only 23, so he's got a long way to go in the game. And I think this season's going to be a big season for him as well. But yeah, he definitely brings a different dimension to the team. Yes, he can play out on the wing a bit, but I would rather he played through the middle, because when we did play him left wing, he didn't get any goals, but up through the middle, he was scoring for fun. So yeah, I would definitely say Isak. He's got the skills as well. I mean, against Forest, when he backheeled it and it went into the back of the net off the post, I mean, that was brilliant, Or the side foot volley, whatever it was. I can't remember now. I think it was the side foot volley, but it went in off the post when the ball looked as if it was behind him. And then he obviously stood up and scored the penalty under extreme pressure. So yeah, the guy's a baller. And I mean, I think the other reason we dropped the Pedro signing was because we realised that Isak was available and there was a possibility that we could get him. So they went over on the aeroplane to Spain with Dan Ashworth and that. And apparently Man United wanted Isak, but he said he chose Newcastle over Man United, which I thought was absolutely brilliant.
That is brilliant. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Champions League next season. If you were the manager, who would you rather pick in the Champions League up front, Isaac or Wilson?
I think you're going to go Isak up front.
More clinical?
Possibly more clinical, but there again, Callum Wilson can be clinical. So you've got the best of both worlds. But I think you'll probably start with Isak in all honesty, because he's got the more European experience than what Callum Wilson has. But then it wouldn't surprise me if he did start Wilson and have Isak on the bench. So because the thing is, you can never guess what team Eddie Howe's going to put out there.
Yeah, so you're talking about Eddie Howe. So when he was appointed, what was your reaction? Because he was at Bournemouth, he got sacked. I didn't really have a huge opinion of him at the time, but now obviously it's changed to a very positive one. So what was your opinion and reaction when he was announced manager?
I wasn't disappointed, because I thought, who realistically, we're in the bottom three of the Premier League, we're cut adrift, who realistically, as a top manager, is going to come in to keep us up? And at the time, I was like, I want somebody to come in who's got Premier League experience. I do not want us getting any manager from abroad that's never managed in the Premier League, because that can be a recipe for disaster and we could have gone down. So when Unai Emery was put forward and the talks were that he was coming in, I was like, yeah, okay, he didn't do great at Arsenal, but he's not been a bad manager wherever else he's been. So I thought, but he's been in the Premier League, so he may come back and have a point to prove and keep us up. So I thought, yeah, I'm not too bad on that one. Then he decided he was staying at Villarreal. Then they said Eddie Howe's coming in. And I actually thought, actually, that's actually not a bad signing as a manager. And at the time, I thought, yes, he'll probably be here till maybe the end of the season, or maybe the season after. When he came in, obviously he had a big job to do because he had to get these players lifted. Because it was just awful. We hadn't won a game. And it took us till the 4th of December to beat Burnley 1-0 at home to get our first win of the season. So it took 14 games to get our first win. And we're the only team that's not won for 14 games and then suddenly won a game and then stayed up. So that's pleasing. But I thought Eddie Howe, yeah, because when you look at Eddie Howe, he's a real good tactician. But not only that, when he lost his job at Bournemouth, instead of sitting around, moping around, doing nothing, he actually went out and done educational football. So he went over to Juventus and stood with Maurizio Sarri on the touchline in the training ground to see how he'd done stuff. Then he went to Spain, to Atletico Madrid, and stood with Diego Simeone and watched how he does stuff on the training ground. He stood with Klopp as well at Liverpool. So he worked out how to become a better manager than he actually was, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And I just say hats off to Eddie Howe, what he's done. And it's proved, you know. And I hope other managers learn from what Eddie Howe's done. You know, if they get the sack from somewhere, go and do a bit of education somewhere else. Go have a look around, see what other managers do. You can see why we sometimes play that bit defensively way, because he's probably picked that up from Simeone at Atletico Madrid, because we all know Diego Simeone plays very defensive, and he's very good at it. And maybe that's where Eddie Howe's got a bit of his arrogance from as well, from Diego Simeone, because we know what he's like. But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of arrogance. I actually quite like it. So I think, yeah, it's been a great appointment. And, you know, I think if we start winning trophies under Eddie Howe, become the elite manager. And I think a lot of clubs now are probably looking at us. And, you know, because at the time when he came in, a lot of clubs were laughing, fans from Villa and places like that. You know, oh, Eddie Howe, that's it. They're doomed now. They've gone. You know, and considering, like I say, we didn't win in the first 14 games, but after that we did. We ended up finishing 11th place that season, which was absolutely amazing. You know, because when we did sack Bruce, Villa then sacked their manager, Norwich sacked their manager, because they were like, oh, hang on, Newcastle sacked their manager. We better make a change now as well, because they're going to overtake us. And that's what they were frightened of.
And ultimately, it didn't pay out for Norwich. They went down, of course. But let's talk about the team's performances at home comparing to their away performances of the season. You managed to get 7 more points at home. That's down to the home support, wouldn't you have thought?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, you know, we've got great support there. We've got the war flags. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic. The displays we put on. You see visiting players coming in when they're standing there, they're looking around at and thinking, wow, what an atmosphere this is. So yeah, I mean, look, we saw it the season before when we beat Arsenal 2-0 at St James's Park, and Bukayo Saka stood there and he's like looking around at the stadium thinking, wow, look at this, what a place, you know. So yeah, I mean, look, our fans play an important role in the club, and yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic all season. We've stuck by the team. And the thing is, like I say, that, you know, we've got the war flags behind us, and it's just absolutely brilliant. And it'll be the same next season as well.
So let's talk about next season. From last season's point of view as well, I think Trippier was one of your main players, creating 126 chances. Would you be expecting other players to step up considering his age? But more importantly, do you expect him to step it up another notch?
Yeah, I mean, look, Trippier is one of the best right backs. We know that. He's a tremendous right back. I mean, look, he created a lot last season, Trippier. He took a lot of corners, a lot of free kicks. This season, I think he's going to have to share it around with Tonali. But I mean, look, Trippier has been absolutely fantastic. He's a proper leader. You know, he came to the club when we were in the relegation zone as well. He could have chose to have gone elsewhere. I think for £12 million, it was an absolute bargain. Yes, we know he's going to be coming up to 32, 33. But the thing is, though, there's still a lot to give from Trippier, and you know, I can see him. I can see him having an important role next season, which he will do as captain, and rightly so.
So let's talk a bit when the takeover happened. It was a bit of not an unexpected one, but one that took a long time to get done as well. So what sort of manager were you expecting before Eddie Howe's links? What sort of manager were you expecting to be brought in?
Um, with Eddie Howe, well, when the takeover came through, I mean, it took a lot of people by surprise because, I mean, we had all this carry on for 18 months about the takeover, but then we'd had a cat case here in London, which was obviously done online. And we heard from the Premier League lawyer who said there was an arbitration set up for the January 2022. And then Daniel Jowell, who spoke for the club, for St James's Holdings, which was Mike Ashley's company. And what he come out with stuff which totally blew everybody's mind. I mean, he came out and said, look, the Premier League wanted to kick Newcastle out the Premier League 6 months ago. And I thought, wow, hang on a minute, why? Just because of a takeover. And the thing is, the guys who brought this cat case to the hearing, which was Keith Patterson and one of the fans and his mate Gordon, they got together and got this sorted out. And they spoke to a top barrister who said, yes, you've got a case here. And they've got evidence for this. And I think what's happened is when that cat case that meeting came to an end, and the judge said, right, okay, I'm going to go away, think about it, make my decision, and then come back if there's a case to be heard. I think he's gone away, and I think he said, yes, there is a case. And I think the Premier League have got spooked by this. And I think Richard Masters and Gary Hoffman, I think they've turned around and said, we've got no choice but to let this takeover go through, because if not, if the evidence comes out, there's going to be policemen knocking at people's doors and taking them away. From not only them, from that big six as well, that so-called big six. So, and then all of a sudden, the Saudis paid beIN Sports compensation. As soon as that was paid, the takeover was through. Now, we played Wolves on the Saturday that was after that cat hearing, and we lost 2-1 in the pouring rain. And the talk was it had actually started then. And then by the Tuesday, Wednesday, there was like, oh, this takeover is going to go through by, and I'm thinking, yeah, but I've heard this before. It's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, it just got louder and louder, and it was like, wow, this is actually going through. And then when Keith Downey announced it on Sky that the takeover had gone through, I was just saying, yes, thank God for that. Thank God we've got rid of Mike Ashley, because that man was just a drain on our club. We just lost 14 years of our club under him. 2 relegations. Yes, Pardew got us into Europe, 11 years ago. But even then, Mike Ashley wanted to ask the Premier League if we could pull out of Europe because he didn't want us in the European competition, And that just shows you what he's like as an owner. So, yeah, so when we got the takeover, absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of people are against it. But again, I know people go down this thing, oh, well, human rights and all this about Saudi Arabia. Go back to the World Cup. I think Qatar, in all honesty, are worse than Saudi Arabia for human rights. So, but I think the owners we've got in have been absolutely fantastic. The first thing they've done is they've taught the fans. That's important. We never heard a thing from our former owner. Everything they do at the club is professional, and we've got all the right people in at the club now, and just hopefully one day things will settle down and people will just get on with it and realise that we're here and we're here to compete.
Absolutely, and I hope you will be competing up there for a long, long time. And I do have a lot of respect for your owners. Even going there to watch the games, you see a lot of owners don't do that, especially Liverpool's owners as well. And now, what sort of caliber of players are you looking towards in long-term future? The likes of Mbappe obviously were linked with Newcastle when the takeover happened. Maybe a bit of an unrealistic target, but now you're in Europe, you can sign a lot more players. So what kind of players are you looking towards?
Well, you're looking for the elite players, aren't you? I mean, look, Tonali, he's an elite player. I mean, he's coming from Italy, the most expensive player from Italy to come into Newcastle, or to leave Italy rather. And I think he's going to be a tremendous player this season. Once he gets going, once he gets his feet in the Premier League, I think he'll be absolutely fantastic. And that's where you need to be. You need the elite players coming in. I mean, Harvey Barnes isn't going to be a bad signing. He's an Eddie Howe type player, and he'll get in with the pressing and the intensity side of the game. But I can see elite players coming in eventually. But we've got to take our time until we get that FFP bar raised. That's the thing. That's what's holding us back. If there was no FFP, I think we would be out there buying players. But unfortunately, we can't. On the Mbappe thing, I don't think we would have him. And I'm not saying because he's not a great player, because he is a fantastic player, but I don't think his attitude is right. And I think the only reason is that's the only reason why we wouldn't take him, because Eddie Howe only wants people with the right characters. I mean, when we done Harvey Barnes' deal, we looked into everything in that deal. We approached the clubs that he was on loan to, the likes of West Brom. We asked him what he was like when he was at West Brom, what his character was like. We've looked into his character at Leicester, what he's like there, speaking to people from there. So it shows you, but do due diligence into every player before they're signed, to see what they are like. And we heard a lot from Italian press that Tonali didn't want to move, he didn't want to leave AC Milan. Well, Eddie Howe put all that to bed by saying no, he did actually want to come. And then even the boss of Milan turned around and said no. As soon as Newcastle made that interest known, Tonali says, "Can I go?" So he wanted to go. He wanted to come and join our project, and he wanted to be part of it. So, all these people coming out and saying Tonali's unhappy, he was forced out of Milan, isn't true. He was never forced out of Milan. He wanted to come. As soon as our interest came in, he asked if he could come.
So your opinion of Tonali then, you speak quite highly of him. So what can he bring to Newcastle with Guimaraes and Joe Linton in midfield?
Well, because he can play defensive midfield and attacking midfield, and the same as Bruno, I think what we'll see is more of is him and Bruno sorting it about. So what you'll see is you might see Tonali playing as a defensive midfielder and Bruno playing further forward. And then maybe during the game, Bruno drops back into that defensive midfield role and Tonali plays more forward. So you're going to have that fluidity, which is what Eddie Howe wants in a team of fluidity. So I think that's what he'll do. And I think you'll see that happening in games. And Tonali can bring the creative side to it as well. So we know what sort of player Tonali is. So I'm looking forward to that. And then you've got Joe Linton, but then you've got to throw Joe Willock into that equation as well. Another player who's got a huge engine in him and has come on leaps and bounds under Eddie Howe as well. Joe Willock was one when Eddie Howe took over. You wondered why Joe Willock was unhappy in training. And it wasn't for the fact he was unhappy being at Newcastle. It was because he said he was lonely. Because when he moved to Newcastle from Arsenal permanently, the club, Steve Bruce, put him in a house in the middle of nowhere in Northumberland, where he was nowhere near the city centre of Newcastle or anything. So he couldn't go out at places. Nearest probably restaurant was like 5 or 10 miles away from him, things like that. And so you can understand why he was lonely. And so Eddie Howe got him moved closer to the centre of Newcastle, and we saw a totally different player in Joe Willock. And Eddie Howe obviously looked into his strengths and has made him an even better player.
So Tony, what have the owners done differently to what's expected of them when they were first brought in?
One, they've stabilised the club. Two, they've brought a new professional attitude to the club by appointing the right people in the right departments. Brought in Dan Ashworth as sporting director, which is a very good move. Brought in Darren Eales as a CEO. Brought in Peter Silverstone from Arsenal in commercial. and they're filling every department that they need to fill it in the boardroom. Because under the former owner, we only had Lee Charnley. We didn't have anybody else. So, to think that we've got a lot more in the boardroom now is absolutely fantastic.
So, did you believe that your club in Mike Ashley's reign was a bit like bare boned in terms of they were trying to cut corners wherever they could to get the most out of his pockets?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, look, that's why when players were being sold under him, um, you know, it was supposed to be reinvesting it back into the club, but it was never reinvested back into the club for transfer purposes. Um, so these owners have done absolutely brilliant since they're coming in. People saying, we had the likes of Paul Merson saying, I don't think these owners have a clue. Well, I'm wondering if he's eating his words now because these owners do have a clue what they're doing, and they're doing so well at it.
So now let's talk about the squad depth of Newcastle last season. How did it hold up in terms of injuries with Wilson and players like that? How would you rely on your team in those kind of circumstances?
Um, I mean, look, our squad depth last season weren't the best. I mean, we had some players coming in which were capable of, but when we played, say, against Sheffield Wednesday in the third round of the FA Cup, we changed the team around a lot. And some of the players playing that day, you could see they just weren't good enough. And we lost a game to League One opposition. So yeah, that sort of showed us where we need to go as a club. We need to get the strength and depth, but to get that as well, we need to get some of these players off the wage bill. The likes of Ryan Fraser, Jeff Hendrick, who are eating up the wage bill, need to be taken off. But it's easier said than done because one, nobody's going to pay the wages of these players what they've been put on, and two, it's getting rid of them, and that's the hardest part. We're just getting rid of Caldwell, who's gone to Leeds for £400,000, and that's his wage off the bill. But yeah, it's just hard to get a lot of these players off. They're just going to sit around on their contracts while they run down.
So let's talk about Pope as well. So Pope did an amazing job last season, 15 clean sheets, something around that. With Pope's backup role, and he was also aging a little bit. So let's look into the future as well. Could you see goalies being brought in to replace him or to use as backups, but then when he retires or leaves, then they'll be first team?
I mean, Pope's 30 now. I mean, look, he came in last season, £10 million. I know there was a few clubs looking at him, but we went in, got him for 10 million. Some teams were like, I don't know why they've bought Nick Pope. He can't kick a football. But I'll tell you what a keeper he was last season for us, and he pulled off some match-winning saves at times for us as well. Like down the 0-0 draw Brighton when he pulled off that tremendous save from Pascal Gross. So yeah, Nick Pope's been absolutely fantastic, and thing is, though, with keepers, they have a long shelf life. So again, he could be a keeper here for the next 5 years even. But I do think we'll bring in some younger goalkeepers. We've got some in the reserves at the moment. We've got Jude Smith, who's a young keeper, but and an Irish lad as well. But yeah, I mean, look, Nick Pope, yeah, definitely is going to be more keepers coming in. I mean, we've got Dubravka as backup. We got Karius as backup as well. So again, I can see possibly another younger keeper coming in at some point, if not this season, definitely next season.
So this is about squad depth as well. So you said Karius and Dubravka. They're not bad choice goalies, but obviously Champions League football's around the corner. You're going to be playing in more competitions. You'd want more depth, better depth as well. So Harvey Barnes, what's he going to bring? Is he going to be depth first team? What's he going to be bringing to Newcastle?
Well, we've seen it in pre-season. We know for Leicester as well. Harvey Barnes is a very attack-minded player. He gets on the ball. He works hard. Going forward, he's absolutely brilliant. He's going to bring a lot of excitement to us fans, and he's got an eye for goal. I mean, look, he got 13 goals for Leicester last season, and he went down. And from a left winger's perspective, that's a great return, and that's what you want from your wingers coming in. You want your wingers getting into double figures. Almiron was in double figures last season for us, so yeah, I think it's a great signing, Harvey Barnes, and I think he'll excel even better under Eddie Howe, in all honesty.
So, as well with more squad depth as well, where do you think you need to improve strength or improve upon next season to be able to challenge even more than the Champions League, to go through to the next rounds, to challenge top four Premier League again, even maybe challenge for the title in some perspectives as well? So, where do you need to improve the team?
Well, I think we need another right-sided centre back brought in definitely because I don't think. I mean, look, Lascelles is there, but I've got a feeling he'll be gone in this window if we bring in another right-sided centre back. So we need another right-sided centre back because Cher's 31 now, so he's not going to have much more left in him at the top level. So we're going to have him replaced anyway. So you want a younger version to come in. We've had links with Desarcy, but the one we've been linked with recently is Jean-Claire Todibo, who plays for Nice. And it's funny, he plays for Nice and we play them. Well, we don't play them, but they're in the Sella Cup tournament at St James's Park next weekend. So, could there be a deal done over that? So I think, yes, the right side centre back, I think we definitely need a new left back. That's been exposed in this pre-season. I think a new left back is what we need. And I still think another striker as well, and maybe another right winger.
So, what sort of left back are you looking at?
We want a left back that can defend, but also get forward and provide assists as well. So, we've been mentioned with the likes of Kieran Tierney, who I think is a great left back. But again, it's wait and see what Arsenal want to do with him. We've also been linked with Federico Di Marco from Inter Milan. Very attacking left back. Not as great defensively, but going forward, absolutely terrific. And it's the same with AC Milan's Theo Hernandez as well. We've been linked with them. So just to bring in a quality left back would just be great. I mean, someone like a Bono Sosa would do me from Stuttgart, a 25-year-old Croatian. So again, he could come in and he could do the supporting of the defence, but not only that, the attacking side of it as well. So yeah, just somebody who's a bit more attack-minded. I mean, look, Dan Burn did a great job there last season. Can't take it away from Dan Burn. But I just think we need more strength and depth that side of it.
So, with the left backs that you've just given me, I'd say Tierney does stick out to me quite a bit. He's a more realistic signing to be making, I think, and he's also got Premier League experience. So, if you were to sign him, what can he be bringing to the team?
Not only bringing his defensive qualities, but also his attacking qualities. I mean, his qualities getting down the flanks and helping out the left wingers. He's got a good cross as well. So, yeah, Tierney's got a lot of strengths. And also the fact, yes, he's got Premier League experience, which is absolutely even better again, rather than bringing in somebody from abroad and they've got to get used to the grips of the Premier League. He knows the pace of the Premier League, which is the more important thing.
So now, lastly, let's now talk about where do you think Newcastle are going to be finishing next season in competitions. So let's start off with the Premier League. Where can you see Newcastle finishing?
Well, obviously we finished fourth this season. It's a hard one because I just think Chelsea's going to come harder next season. Liverpool are going to come stronger as well. I'm going to say fifth place. And that still gets you Champions League, by the way, fifth place. So I'm going to say fifth place.
Okay, so then now about the FA Cup, Carabao Cup. Let's start with the FA Cup. Are you expected to be going far in that, considering it's a nice competition to be winning?
I would like us to win it. But after dropping out the third round the last two seasons, I'm going to say maybe semi-final.
That's quite a stretch, to be fair, considering obviously where you finished last 2 years. Now, what about the Carabao Cup?
Again, I think it's a cup that you can win. So again, I would like to see us get back to the final and win the Carabao Cup this season, which isn't unrealistic because a lot of big teams play a weekend side in them. So it's a good chance for us to get to Wembley again. So I'm going to say I want to see us go and win the cup this time.
That's nice. But do you think Eddie Howe's the kind of guy to be playing weaker teams, like you've said, like Liverpool do, Chelsea do, or would you go for it?
All depends who the opposition is. If we're playing against someone like from League Two, maybe we'll play a weekend team. But if it's a Premier League team, then obviously we're going to play more of a stronger team against them, as we have done before. But we have faith in Eddie.
Absolutely. Now you're in the Champions League, so let's talk about that. Where are you finishing in that? Is is it expected to finish out the group, or would you be happy to even go into the Europa League and finish third in the group?
Well, if we got out that group and then got knocked out the next round, yes, I'd be gutted, but I wouldn't be surprised because I think we've done well to get out the group, depending who we've paired with in the groups. If we finish third and we're one of the best third place finishers and we end up in the Europa League, that's not a problem because we're still in European competition. Just means we drop into the Europa League. So again, either way, either we get out the group stage, but if we don't, worst case scenario, we end up in the Europa League, which I wouldn't have a problem with. So, my aim would be if we got out the group, I'll take that. But if we don't, then I'm happy to take the Europa League.
So let's say you did finish third, you drop into the Europa League. Where would you be expected to go in that? Would you be expected to go to the final, semi-final? What are you thinking?
Again, depending what teams are in there. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. We've had some good times in the Europa League in the past. I remember under Sir Bobby we got the semi-finals. Under Pardew, I think we got the quarter-finals. So I think even if we got the quarter-finals, I'd be quite happy with that.
Okay, really nice. Thank you so much for joining me, Tony, today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in on Unite Radio. Kick off with Jamie McCreedy, of course, on a station that we all love. It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of football with all you passionate fans, and it will not end there. I want to extend a huge thank you to Tony, the amazing Newcastle fan I had the privilege of interviewing. His passion and insights truly brought the spirit of the Toon Army alive. It's fans like Tony that make football so special, and I can't wait to bring you more interviews with dedicated supporters from all clubs from around the world. But the show does not stop here. Kickoff is about celebrating the love for football and connecting with the incredible people who make the sport what it is. I'm on the lookout for more enthusiastic individuals like you to join me on the show and share your unique stories, experiences, and of course, perspectives. So if you're a devoted supporter of your club, a player chasing your footballing dreams, or a coach making a difference on the training ground, or a professional with an exciting role in the football industry, do not hesitate to reach out. Your voice matters, and Kickoff is the perfect platform to showcase your love for the beautiful game. I'm committed to bringing you the most engaging and insightful conversations, whether it's discussing the latest matches, analysing tactics, or uncovering the behind-the-scenes stories that often go unnoticed. Together we will explore the magic of football and celebrate the global football community that unites us all. Remember, Kickoff with Jamie McCreedy is your show as much as mine. Let's continue to make this journey unforgettable, sharing our passion for football with the world. Stay tuned for more exciting interviews, discussions with fans, players, and of course industry professionals from every corner of the sport. And if you're eager to share your footballing story, do not hesitate to reach out. Your seat on the Kickoff show is waiting. Thank you so much for being a part of this amazing football community, and until next week, we keep the love of football burning bright. And of course, until next Wednesday, 5 PM here on Unite Radio, I'll be interviewing someone else, Chloe, who is an amazing person in the National League levels. But that's more coming up on my social channels, Jamie McCreedy 4 on Twitter, or jamie.mccreedy. And you can look me up there and get all the information you need to come onto Unite Radio, and also the information about people that I'll be interviewing within the next few weeks. See you all next week on Unite Radio. I've been Jamie McCreedy.
Under my eyes, turn the rhythm up, don't you wanna just come along for the ride? Oh, my outfit's all tight, you can see my heartbeat tonight. I can take the heat, baby, best believe that's the moment I shine. Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no chance. I could dance, I could dance, I could dance. Watch me dance, dance the night away. My heart could be burning, but you won't see it on my face. Watch me dance, dance the night away. I'll still keep the party running, I won't get out of place. Lately I've been moving close to the edge, still be looking my best. I stay on the beat, you can count on me, I ain't missing no steps. Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no